we are in Larabee studio in Los Angeles with Manny Marroquin. You certainly know how much records he mixed in his life. And I have some question for Manny. Manny is what we can say gear addict.
Mhm.
And can you explain me quickly what is the difference between mixing in the box and mixing with real gear?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for coming. I always love to see you and love what you do. So it's exciting for me to be here with you. So thank
Many
you.
thanks.
Um, Mixing in the box and out of the box. Okay, so a lot of people can get good mixes in the box, and a lot of people can get mixes out of the box. For me personally, I think we were talking a bit earlier about this, where there's a human element, and I may be a creature of habit because that's how I started, but there is some connection, that a beautiful connection that goes when you touch the knobs and faders, that kind of goes through your body and through your brain, and how you process certain things, that there's something really beautiful about that, and something very soulful about that. So how I see it is, anytime I've done stuff in the box, I can't say it's necessarily better or worse, but it's different in the sense that you react differently to what you're doing. So in other words, if you're doing an EQ in the box, or a whole mix in the box, and you have a bunch of EQs, and you're doing, taking this out, putting this in, and then you're listening, and then you're like, oh, let me do a little more of this, and then you listen again, and then you go, oh, well, if I did that, it affected this other sound. So then you add another EQ to this sound. So then you start EQing, compensating, because you took some of this and you added some of that, but then now something else happened, and you got to bring this. So you're coloring in there, but to do that, it would have taken you maybe 5 minutes to do. When you're on the board, you do this, and immediately you can be doing it at the same time, and creatively you can get stuff more out of how it makes you feel. So it's a bit of a quicker process to get your ideas out, and that to me is probably, besides the sonic differences, I think that's the biggest difference, because you're able to do stuff fairly quickly, and not because you're in a hurry, but because you're trying to get ideas out as
Yes.
quickly as you can. Because it's like, I can compare it maybe to a songwriter. You know how you hear guys say, "Oh, this song came out in 15 minutes." Some of the best songs. "Oh, we wrote this in 15 minutes." 15 minutes, that's like one of the greatest songs ever. And then you have guys that spend months on a song that's just okay. Well, because the right side of your brain is your creative side, and it's when you tap into that and you're going so fast that you need to get that information out as quickly as possible, because your mind, once it starts to wander off, then it starts to think from the left side. So the moment it switches to that side, your creative flow or juices stop. And what you're trying to do now, you're trying to get it out as quickly as possible, so that when you get out of that creative moment, you've 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 actually gotten it out as much as possible for that period of time. And that's why people say, "Oh, I wrote this in 15 minutes," because they were so in touch with that left side of that brain that they were able to do it in 15 minutes. Where people that do it in 3 hours, 8 hours, they maybe weren't in touch 100% with that side. And that's what we're trying to do. At least for me, that's the biggest difference. The second one is just the your depth and width.
Yes.
When I try to do something in the box, there's if I solo a kick, it sounds like a kick. And if you do it in analog, it sounds exactly like the same kick. My problem, what's happening if I when I've done stuff in the box, is the more information I put in, I think of it like in a box. There's a plastic box, and you can see through it, and you put little things at a time. You can put a ball, a tennis ball. You can put a stuffed animal, and you start stuffing stuff into this box. So the box starts to be really cramped and really tight, and that's the way. For me, when I mix in the box, I feel like everything's so tight in that one box. Now, an analog for me is that, but it's a much bigger box.
Yes.
So this information that I'm putting in, I have space between the tennis ball, whatever I put in that box. There's space, and I can almost reach out and see through in between the spaces, and that to me gives me depth and width. I'm not able to get that in the box as much as I do on the board. You know, I- I'm not I'm not as technical as other engineers, but I know what my ears tell me, and that's the one thing that they tell me is there's an emotion with the depth and the width.
I experimented the same thing. I've done some blind tests with mixing source in a computer or on some digital console, and with large digital console, also with some analog mixer. When the when the sound is in solo, one sound, it's okay. The more sound you have, the more it is messy inside the box, and after a certain number, you really experiment that the sound is solid with weights, and it's large, it's bigger in analog summing that in the box.
Mm-hmm.
The other question I have for you is, how do you select a compressor?
You know, an analog compressor. I think it's been a process of knowing your gear. So, you know, I if you look at my room, I only have maybe the same 12 compressors I've had for a long time. So, I think you kind of start to see a color of it. And I said this in the past where it's like, I don't know if, you know, people get it or not, but it's like a color. I try to relate it to a color. You know how you learn perfect pitch, they say. Perfect pitch is, you know, when you can go like that and they could say, oh, it's A flat. Well, I don't have that. So what they taught us in school, they would say, you need to learn relative pitch. Meaning, if you learn 12 songs, then you'll have relative pitch. So if you go somewhere over the rainbow, down, down, that's an octave. Okay, so I know what an octave is. If you go adjust, don, 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 that's a minor second. If you go N, B, C, you know, and you learn these 12 songs, so now that's relative pitch. So if you go boom, 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 I know that that's an octave, and I know all the different, you know. So anyway, relative pitch. So that helps you know pitch better. So for me, it's like, how do I get to know my equipment? So I started closing my eyes and relating it to a color. So it's a little difficult to explain, but say the 1176, for example. You take that and this is through just years of using it, and you relate it to a color, a tone, whatever that is. To you could be red, to me could be brown. Doesn't matter, as long as you know that that's the color. And the relativeness to what you're trying to color. So in other words, if the 1176, let's just say, is brown for me, right? Then my mix, my sound is orange. And if I can add a little bit of brown to it, then I go to the 1176, because I know that's going to blend and it's going to make it what I'm looking for. So that's sort of what I try to do. So I learn each piece's characteristic color-wise, and I color with it. So, you know, does the 1176 work with this guitar? Well, yeah, that or the LA2A. What? How about a Fairchild? How about a plug-in? How do you choose that? Well, I honestly, just by my gut and my instinct tells me, judging by this sound, the 1176, the LA2A is going to be better than the 11, because I know this, and a bunch of little things go through my mind of what that sound is.
Yes,
And that's how that's basically how I choose the compressors.
and a lot of people says that there is some point, some on compressor maybe this ratio, uh, this this release and this attack is the normal setting of the machine. What do you think about this? Do you spend a lot of time changing the
Hmm.
things? No.
No, the a blessing for me as a mixer is that personally is that I am not that technical, and I choose not to be that technical, because I really feel that the numbers on the knob on the attack and the release don't mean anything,
For sure.
So I just go with. I don't even look at it. I'm like, oh, yeah, oh, wait, there it is. Boom, done. So I try not to get caught up in ratios, releases, attacks, and I try not to get caught up. I just really try my very, very best to go by feel and what sounds best. If I want something that sustains for a long time, then I know that instinctively you're gonna do a slow release.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, it's the obvious ones, but I honestly just play, 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 play until it sounds good, until I feel it sounds good with what I'm trying to do, and then tomorrow's song it could be completely different. So I really don't, I don't follow when they say, oh, these ratios and
Yes.
I don't follow that,
Okay.
because
Yes.
you're telling me that that's gonna sound the best on everything. I don't believe that.
Yes,
You know.
because uh, it was a surprise when I was a young sound engineer that when I come to a studio there was some bass, there was some mark on the bass vocal,
Mm-hmm.
on the ratio,
Mm-hmm.
on the and for me this is very curious, and I know that a lot of people now work like they have maybe 3 or 4 1176 with ratio to 20, ratio to 4, ratio, and they never change,
Mm-hmm.
and they just patch
Mm-hmm.
this setting,
Mm-hmm.
those setting, and I can't believe it,
Yeah.
but it's another way of work.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't know if I can do that. And maybe look, I'm not saying that that's the wrong or right way of doing
Yes,
things,
for sure.
but at least for me, is I'm so lucky and blessed enough to work from very different genres of music.
Yes.
I mean, I can go from a rock group to a hip hop to a pop to R&B, soul. I mean, I can go, and I don't know if a lot of guys can do that. So I'm blessed enough to be able to do that. So my thing is, I if I'm doing if I'm doing an Americana folky type of project, I treat it completely different than if I was doing a hip hop project. I treat everything differently. So it's almost like I gotta forget what I know on pop, and I hate to even classify music, but there's certain things when I mix a Flow Rider or Pitbull record that I don't do with a John Mayer album. So knowing that, there's no way I could use the same settings on a compressor or even on an EQ or any of that stuff, because it won't work with this. So it's a lot deeper. So that's why I choose not to be a technical and set everything the same way, because it's gonna be different tomorrow. Like we're doing Rihanna today, tomorrow could be something completely different. So I try not to have the equipment run me. I run the equipment, and
Yes.
I take that attitude where it doesn't dictate how I mix. I dictated how it's helps my mix. And I think a lot of rookie mistakes are the people rely a little too much on the equipment, with whether it's you're on the blogs or whether someone tells you this, and hey, that may be helpful at times, but my suggestion is just get lost in it. Just forget it, because that person, even the person that is an expert on that piece of gear, you may realize that when you do this combination, it may be a completely different sound, and that's maybe what you're looking for. And the guy may be like, "Oh yeah, I would have never thought of that." So it's like the Wild West. You can do whatever you want with this equipment. Sometimes pushing some of this equipment sounds better than being conservative with it. So I say with analog gear, the best way to do so is just to push it to the point where it's like being, like just push it, push, and not follow any rules.
So in fact, you need not only one piece. You need to find your own piece regarding your taste, and you need to experiment.
Mm-hmm.
This is
Absolutely.
very, very important. This is why you have
Yeah, so many colors.
so many colors.
Yeah.
So many colors. Did you in your career reject some machines because you don't want them?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. There's things that I listen to them, and it may not be for me. My ears may not be, ready for that, or been past that. And I'm very selective. As you can see, my room is not that big, so so I don't want to like just put gear in here if I'm not gonna use it. If there's a piece of gear in this room, that means that I love it. It's simple as that. I don't have a piece just to not
just
use
for
and impress just for looks. Luckily I'm past that, and luckily I'm not like that. Everything you see in this room, I absolutely love. There's not one piece of gear in this room that you'd be like, nah, it's cool, it's all right. It works for something, and it works really well for something. So I try to. There's always pieces of gear that you try, and you say, thank you, but it's not for me.
My last question.
But before your last question, I need to cheers to myself and to you for this wonderful wine.
Thank you.
Okay, now
French wine.
Nothing better than French wine.
My last question, in fact, is what was the use for you for the for last years? You have the next two. What is for you the best use?
I found a few things on it. As an effect, I find that it grabs a lot of things fast. It's got a really cool attack and release. And as an effect, I've used it a few times where I just really compress the crap out of something, and it gives you that sort of crunch to it. Okay, so I'm going to be holding my wine from now on because I think I look more sophisticated with a French wine in my hands. So bonjour. So to answer your question, the applications for the Dynax 2 that I found useful for me is as an everyday application, like guitars sound really, really good. It adds a nice warm character. I like the way the attack and release. I think that's the coolest features.
Because of the large range?
Yes, because I can get it. It's such a fast attack, and I can and slow. The range is beautiful on it.
Because we've made it very large.
Yeah,
and this is very
versatile.
Unusual. It's quite unique to have very slow, very fast to very slow.
Yes, and I think that's why I liked it originally. It's versatile, meaning that if I want to grab something and it's like, then it's there, and that's the sound. And the cool thing is that the meter changes colors, and I love that. that's your best feature, by the way. But
yes, I said.
But it's cool because it's got a really unique sound that a lot of other compressors don't have. Now, what I'm looking when I'm, like I said before, if there's a piece of gear in here, it's because I love it, because I'm not trying to get the same sound out of every compressor because I have that already. So it's really unique, meaning that I don't have it in this room. It doesn't sound like anything else.
And you have a lot.
Yeah, and it doesn't sound like anything else. So for me, it was when I heard, I'm like, wow, this is really cool. I can do this, I can do that, I can brick wall, I can limit it. Oh wow, I don't have a compressor like that here, and that's what sold me on it. It's like I don't have a compressor. I gotta have it because I don't have that, and it doesn't sound. I don't like pieces of gear that try to sound like something else.
Yes, for sure. We don't make clones.
Yeah.
Our philosophy is to design different thing with our minding of music, because I am a musician, and we make long testing. We go to studio, and in fact I also make machines that I love the feeling. Not I'm a technician, but music are not the right way. Only hearing, testing, with my music and the music of the other people.
Hmm. Yeah, you come from, you're a soulful guy. You come when you build something, it's got to come from here.
Yes,
It's not.
yes.
It's not just a piece of
I-
electronic. It's,
No, no,
it's
no.
something. It's got to come
It's
from here.
my taste,
Yeah.
and I spend a lot of time with headphones to be sure about the artifacts, and I come to other studio to make inquiries and looking at how the people react when they turn the knobs.
Hmm.
This is very important for me. And when I made the Dynax, I discovered that a lot of people were smiling. And I said, okay, we are on the good way, on the right way.
Could have been worse. It could have been crying. Like,
Yes, but I don't
no,
want people
but
to
I
cry
had the
with-
same effect when I first heard it. I was like, "Wow, oh, and they can do. Oh, okay." I'm like, yeah, let me. I need to get that in my room.
This is my reward when people try the machine and say, mm. It's very
'Cause
important for me.
yeah, you know, there's so many pieces of gear too. There's
Yes.
so much equipment.
Yes, and so
you
much
said-
clones.
Like you said, the clones, right? Yeah, half of them are clones. And listen, they may sound cool, they may sound good, and everything. And there's no knock. We're not knocking them, and you know, it's just different. It's what the beauty about what we do. It's all subjective. There's no right or
Yes,
wrong.
for sure.
It's the beauty of music. It's like, you like jazz, he likes classical, great, and I like pop or whatever, great. There's nothing wrong with any of it. It's just a preference. And the beauty about equipment is there's nothing wrong. There's no right or wrong. It's a preference. And when people hear it, you know, it's a choice whether they want that tone in their arsenal or not. And when I first heard your stuff, I was like, "Whoa! I gotta have part of my arsenal." You know, like the video games when they shoot, you got like different guns and different. Yeah, now you got another type of gun to your arsenal.
Yes.
So that's how I see it.
But it's peaceful.
Yeah, it doesn't kill.
I don't want to make guns.
It saves people's lives. It doesn't kill.
Next time I will make some guns for you.
Maybe that wasn't the best analogy, but yes.
Yes.
No,
Guns, but with valves.
there you go.
Not
There you
tube
go.
guns.
There you go. There you go.
Many thanks, Manny,
Thank you.
for taking some time for us.
Of course. Anytime. Anytime. Thank you.
Many thanks.